Is Joaquin Phoenix's new Joker the closest Joker we've ever had to Heath Ledger? Hi there and welcome back to Circuit the World. My name's Alice and today we're talking about The Joker. The Joker is the most recent film to be released by Warner Brothers and DC Comics and focuses on the origin story of the Joker, who is, in this story, Arthur Fleck. Arthur has a mental condition which means he will randomly and impulsively laugh in situations where he's not supposed to laugh and such. He also has a very deranged kind of childhood that seems to have had knock-on effect of his mental stability throughout the film. The film starts with Arthur working as a clown. It kind of shows the trials and tribulations of his life. He gets beaten up by some kids. You get to look into his life where he's looking after his very ill mother, who just constantly talks about how great Thomas Wayne is. That was a Wayne. And there's some quite nice little nods all the way through it to the Batman universe, kind of keeps reminding you that although it's quite a dark and twisted film, it is still part of the DC universe, it is still part of the Batman universe. It's the latest rendition we have of the Joker, and I have to say, I absolutely bloody loved it. It was such a mind twist of a film, and it leaves you asking so many questions, but there's also some really strong core messages that come through, and I absolutely love that. Because of the beat up of the kids, Arthur gets given a gun by one of the other clowns, which unfortunately falls out of his trousers whilst he's performing in a children's hospital, which leads to him losing his job. Now, one of the key things about that moment in the film is being a clown is something that makes Arthur happy. It's where he seems to be his happiest. It's almost his disassociation with reality. It's the moment where he doesn't feel like there's any weight on his shoulders. He can just be funny and happy, and he's just making people laugh, which at the end of the day is all Arthur really strives to want to do throughout this film. He's getting the subway home and he's quite down and depressed, and he sees these three rich hotshot kind of city suit guys harassing a woman on a train, and something makes Arthur laugh, which then makes him laugh even harder, which makes him laugh even harder, which makes him laugh even harder. These guys obviously see him and they're like, what the hell are you laughing at? They come over, they start beating him up, and because Arthur has a gun on him, through self-defense at first, he does shoot two of them dead. Because of the type of people that were killed, and it's explained that a clown killed them, it kind of fuels the fire to this political rumbling that's going around in which the rich save the rich and shit on the poor, basically. And the poor use this clown icon and this incident to rally up together and rebel against the rich and be like, do you know what? If you're going to keep leaving us and calling us the scum of the earth and calling us clowns, which Thomas Wayne does do, stupidly, in an interview, we're going to take you all out, because if you're not around to do this to us, then maybe we can have a bit of your wealth. It's kind of it's very kind of industrial revolutionist. There's a lot of political terms around it. It's kind of an insight to the world as you know it, which is one of the ways that fantasy films work quite well, is that they take an element of the real, sprinkle it into a fictional film, and that makes the messages or the story resonate more with the audience, because the audience are like, damn, at least this element of the story could really happen to us in real life. It could be a real thing that we're faced with every day. This could happen. Nobody obviously knows it's Arthur. Arthur seemingly gets away with the murder of these three guys, but it sparks this rumbling, and that then becomes an underlying tone throughout the rest of the film. Arthur discovers that Thomas Wayne is his father, or at least his mother thinks is his father. Long, convoluted, twisty, windy, scary story short, it's discovered that Arthur's mother is insane, and So this is where it starts to get really confusing, because a really big element of this story is reality versus imagination. For example, there's a whole storyline where Arthur's dating this woman called Sophie, and they seem to really be bonding. She seems to be like a light in his life that replaces, he's lost his job, his mother's ill, but she seems to be this light in his life that kind of leads him through everything and gets him through the worst of it, if you will. But then it all turns out that was all in his imagination, because he goes into her apartment at one point and she sees him and she's like, oh my God, how did you get in here? You're in the wrong apartment. And it then proceeds to give you a flashback of all those scenes we've seen Sophie in, but with Sophie not there. And you understand that it's Arthur's imagination. Whether he kills her or not is unknown. But that's the first trigger moment that makes you start to question everything you see from then on, because you're like, are we really seeing this, or is this part of Arthur's imagination? Are we seeing the world through his eyes, or is this really what we're seeing? And it really starts to get you twisted and crazy at the end, and it adds to the whole psychological mush that is Arthur's brain, because you feel like, because you don't know as the audience what's real and what's not real, you also feel this kind of strange parallel or paradox of not really knowing where you stand, not really understanding where the story really sits and what really happened and what didn't happen, and did he really get invited to the talk show? Did he really go on the talk show? Did he really kill the talk show host? Did he really kill Sophie? Did he really kill his mum? Did he really kill his clown friends who came to see him when he was having a hard time? And when you walk out, you almost feel mentally drained because you're trying to keep up with everything, and you leave with more questions than answers. And I absolutely love that, because I feel like that fed right into the whole derailment of Arthur's mind, and it's almost like, as the audience, we went on that journey with him. There's a moment where he's talking to a therapist in an office, and then at the very end of the film, he's talking to it's a very similarly composed scene where there's a desk and a woman and Arthur, and you have a few over-shoulder shots, and it's all very similarly composed, the whole scene, but it's in a sheer white, very clinical, almost padded cell-esque, and it seems like at the end of it he's running around and he's crazy and he's doing all these things. You can't really tell, was he ever not in Arkham Asylum? Was he always in Arkham Asylum? Did all this really happen, or did he imagine it all happening? And was he just sitting there talking to his therapist, talking out what he hoped had happened? Because at the end of the day, Arthur just wanted to be known and wanted to bring joy, and that vision of what he wants does get twisted towards the end, where he starts to be more like, I want to be the figurehead for these lower class people, I want to be the person they rebel behind, I want to be an icon for them. And it's interesting because when he says he's going on the talk show, his main thing, and the thing you think he's going to do, is kill himself on the show and be like a martyr. And it's almost in the moment he has a switch, because Murray says something and he doesn't really like it, and it rattles him a little bit, and then he goes, do you know what? I'm going to kill you instead. I think Joaquin Phoenix's performance was phenomenal. Very, very Heath Ledger vibes I got of him. Even since seeing the trailers, I was all about it. It was almost returning to the roots. It was a very dark, twisted, there was no real hubby-bubby, happy, jokey, like some other DC films you've had. Its storyline appeared linear, but was actually so jagged. It was very untraditional for DC and Warner Brothers, and I really loved the direction this went in, and I only could hope that this is the direction DC starts to take things in moving forwards, because I think if they do, they can really start to be on the similar path to Marvel, especially when Marvel's in this transitional period where they're kind of up in the air, they don't really know what they're doing, they've got a lot of characters but only thin threads of story because a lot of the storylines have been wrapped up. This could really be a chance for DC to make their impact. I know they've just signed Robert Pattinson as the new Batman, which I'm not going to judge yet, but I don't have good hopes for, but we'll see. Hopefully Robert proves me wrong. If they're re-signing a new cast and they've got this new cast, I would say, if I was DC, I'd be sweeping everything off the line. They've got a really strong film in Birds of Prey coming out as well. Margot Robbie, love that girl. And the Harley Quinn she brought in Suicide Squad a few years ago really stood out of that film and was probably one of the main pullaways from that film as a positive thing. A lot of people had negatives to say about Suicide Squad. It was okay, I didn't hate it. I think if DC start moving in this direction, maybe not a villain-focused direction, but keeping that dark, edgy, less fun, happy, ha-ha trips and falls, and more kind of really serious storytelling and sprinkling in that real life and really making some strong characters that people can get behind. And you're almost, with this story with the Joker, you almost empathize and you feel sorry for him, because you feel like, had he have just been given a chance or not been so downtrodden, would he have ended up the way he was? And it makes the villain that's so psychologically deranged a real person. And I've always said the strongest and best villains to me are the ones that are real, and they're real people. They're not just villains for the sake of being villains. They're not just villains because Batman pushed him off a swing when he was 6 and now he's mad, or he's not just a villain because Tony Stark stole his tech. I absolutely love Jake Gyllenhaal and Mysterio in the Spider-Man Far From Home. I just really hated their reason for making him evil, because I feel like it was weak and just a way to try and kind of fit him into a film he was never in, and I really didn't like that. I just love it when villains have a real villain purpose. It's like, you know, I'm not just against you, I'm against the world. I'm never gonna change because the world didn't change for me, so why should I change for the world? I want the world to be the way I want it to be, and I'm now in a position of power where I can do something about it. It's a clever villain I just absolutely live for. I haven't heard anyone say a bad thing about it since it's come out, and I just hope they replace Jared Leto with this Joker, because this one's much better. I really wanted at the end scene where he's in Arkham, I really wanted the interviewee to be Harley. I really wanted them to have drafted Margot Robbie in for that, because that would have been such a nice tie together. And I know it's set a lot later, but there's the whole thing about Harley. It's the Joker who converts her from being a psychoanalyst or a psychologist even, and he somehow manages to manipulate her way of thinking and feeling, and he is the one that unhinges her basically. And I just really would have loved that link. But I guess there's the whole conversation about Jared Leto's Joker, and there was that whole kind of thing that they can't really just, I guess they can't really just write him out. They're saying that wouldn't be the first time DC have just changed actors. If you have seen Joker, let me know in the comments down below what you thought about it, what your favorite scenes were, bits that stood out for you, if you think this is the right direction that DC should be going in with their new films, and if you think Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is just as psychologically unhinged and awesome as Heath Ledger was, making the role what it was. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's been an absolute blast as always. If you enjoyed this video, go show that like button some Joker love. And if you want to support the channel, go hit that cheeky little subscribe button. Stay awesome, and I will see you all in the next video. Joaquin is not how I would have pronounced that name. So if someone could explain to me how that works, I'd be really grateful.